Hello friends, welcome to Kamath Astrology, and today we are going to talk about a very important transit, that is the sun enters into the sign of Pisces or Mean on 14th March 2021 and stays there till 13th April 2021. Now this is a very important transit because we know that Pisces is the last sign in the zodiac belt. It is the 12th house in the zodiac belt, and the 12th house signifies liberation, isolation, expenses, and spiritual awakening. The 12th house also signifies moksha, and therefore it signifies the end of a lifespan and moving into a new lifespan, which means that in this case it signifies the end of the year in the Hindu calendar and the start of a new year from 14th April. Om Sri Krishnaya Namaha. So now let us look at the planetary position on 14th March 2021. So you can see one small red arrow which shows the movement of the sun from the Kumbh Rashi, that is the sign of Aquarius, into the sign of Pisces or Mean Rashi on 14th March 2021. You can see that the moon is already present in this sign. Now let us understand the sign of Pisces. The sign of Pisces is a watery sign represented by two fishes. Now what water is there in the sign of Pisces? The sign of Pisces is ruled by Jupiter or Guru, and the water in the sign of Pisces refers to the spiritual water. So any planet that enters into the sign of Pisces undergoes a spiritual awakening. The sign of Pisces is exactly opposite to the nature of the sun. The sun represents power, authority, fame, royalty. The sun represents the king. And if you want to take a dip into the spiritual waters, you have to give up your ego. And this is what is represented by the sign of Pisces. We also know that on the negative side, the sun represents ego. And therefore, when sun enters into the sign of Pisces, it means you have to learn to give up your ego and surrender to the higher force, that is to God. The sun also represents the government. Okay, what this means is the government must now surrender to the higher force, that is God, believe in his wisdom and take decisions accordingly. It is the time when the king surrenders his ego and completely gets dipped into the spiritual water of Pisces. So it results in a spiritual awakening for the king. Now one more thing to remember is that Venus is almost at 27 degrees right now in the sign of Aquarius or Kumbh, which means that in the next few days Venus as well as Neptune will move into the sign of Pisces and be present with the sun. Now sign of Pisces is nothing but the exaltation sign of Venus. Why is this so? Though the sign of Pisces belongs to Guru Bruhaspati, who is not so friendly with Venus or Shukracharya, why does Venus get exalted in the sign of Pisces? Let us understand this also. Now, what does Venus represent? Venus represents love, he represents romance, he represents comforts, he represents all kinds of luxuries, he represents everything that you experience with your senses. Whatever you see in this world, whatever you hear in this world, whatever you are able to do in this world is all because of your senses, that is Venus. And sign of Pisces represents spiritual waters. Venus represents love, and therefore the sign of Pisces represents the highest nature of love, that is the love for God. And therefore Venus in the sign of Pisces means someone who has gained spiritual wisdom and has understood the true essence of love and is totally absorbed in divine love. This is the reason why Venus gets exalted or very powerful in the sign of Pisces. So now Venus is going to combine with the Sun. The Sun is nothing but the universal soul or the universal Atma Karaka. The Sun is the significator of soul. And when the soul combines with this divine love, realization of God is obtained, liberation is obtained, and that is what is meant by the conjunction of Venus and Sun in the sign of Pisces. Remember that when Venus comes in close contact with the Sun, it becomes combust. That means Venus gives up the carnal desires, lust, and he gets totally engaged in the love for God. And this is the significance of this transit. You can find both the luminaries, the Sun and the Moon, present here, okay, along with Venus. And this indicates a new beginning or the ending phase of a lifespan. It indicates true love for God, and therefore the sign of Pisces also indicates liberation or moksha. The only condition is you will have to give up your ego completely to realize this divine love. Now, one more thing to note is that Saturn is aspecting the Sun from the sign of Capricorn. That is, Saturn is putting his third aspect on the sign of Pisces or Mean, in which the Sun and the Moon are present. Now, what does Saturn represent? Saturn represents limitations. He represents obstacles, he represents hurdles, he represents structure, order, and discipline. Okay, and he is aspecting the Sun, who represents ego. So, what is the hurdle that may come in your path? It is your own ego. It is your own sense of self gratification. It is your own sense of power. It is your own sense of authority. And to help the soul get closer to God, Saturn puts limitations on this ego. That is, he teaches the king how to surrender to God. This means that the king has to put in a lot of efforts to overcome his own ego and surrender to the divine force. Only then will he experience the bliss of God. Another very interesting thing is that for Leo ascendant, the sign of Pisces is the 8th house, okay, and the ascendant lord or the first house lord is the Sun moving into the 8th house. So Leo ascendants are going to experience a divine transformation in this period. They will develop intense love for God, but for that they need to learn to overcome their ego, and only then will they be able to take a dip in the divine spiritual water of the sign of Pisces. Now remember that any transformation is not easy. With transformation comes pain, comes difficulties, comes hardships, but the end result is very good. Now this 12th house is the sign of moksha, is the sign of liberation. Okay, and you can see right now the moon is also present in this 12th house. Whenever the moon and the sun are present together in the same sign, it indicates a new moon day or an amavasya, and therefore this is actually indicating the beginning of a new era. The sun is going to remain in this sign till 14th April 2021. That is, on 14th April 2021 he will transit into the zodiac sign of Mesh, and therefore 13th April 2021 marks the beginning of a new year in the Hindu calendar, which will also be celebrated as Gudi Padwa. The festival of Gudi Padwa indicates the beginning of a new harvest of Rabi crops. Okay, and it is also said to be the day on which Brahma created the universe after a big pralay had occurred. So the transit of sun on 14th April into the sign of Mesh or Aries indicates a new beginning for times ahead. It indicates the start of a new year, and it is also called as Mesh Sankranti, which is very auspicious. Now, let us look at the negative side of this transit also. The sun represents a person in power, a person in authority. Okay? And the sun is the universal soul. Sun rules the sign of Leo, and sun is entering into the 8th house from Leo. So, on the negative side, this transit indicates a very difficult situation for a person in power, something that is comparable to a death like situation or death like troubles for a very powerful politician or a person holding a high position of power. So, because of this transit, we may see the death of a very famous politician, a very famous film star, or some very well known personality. It need not be death, but this person can face death like situations or troubles similar to that of death. Now, for a famous person, a death like situation can be the loss of power, the loss of position, the loss of status also. Okay, so these kind of situations can occur for people in power as well as people holding high positions in the government. The moon is in the sign of Pisces, and both Rahu and Mars are in the Rohini Nakshatra, which is ruled by the moon. Saturn is also aspecting the moon, which means that in this 1 month period, there could be a rise in illnesses related to waterborne diseases. In the last few months, many earthquakes have occurred. The country of Iceland had almost 20,000 earthquakes in a week. Now, however, these earthquakes were not very intense. They did not result in immense damage to loss of life, etc. Okay, why was this so? Because Jupiter is aspecting the combination of Mars and Rahu, and Jupiter's aspect always provides protection. However, after 6th April, Jupiter is going to move into the sign of Aquarius, and post this transit, Jupiter's aspect will no longer fall on Mars and Rahu, and this can be a period when there can be some major events, some major transformation in the world. So friends, to summarize, the transit of Sun into the sign of Pisces indicates the culmination or the ending point and the beginning of a new era, which will start when the Sun enters into the Mesh Rashi on 14th April 2021. This transit signifies a major transformation and changes in times ahead. So friends, if you like this video, please mark it as liked on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to my channel Kamath Astrology, you can do so now by clicking the subscribe button. So when I add a new video, you will be automatically notified. My contact details are given in the next slide. To reach out to us, please email us at astrosevaworld@yahoo.com. If you need any consultation, please email us at this email ID. To know more about us, visit our website astroseva.tripod.com. So friends, thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you soon with another video. Till then, stay safe, take care, bye.